Hi, this is Meg Lightheart from megalightheart.com. I want to look at feedback today through the lens of adult development, or what some call vertical development. It's something that informs a lot of my coaching practice when I'm working with leaders, and really is different to other lenses like Myers-Briggs or those kind of typologies. This is more about evolution and how we grow our lens in response to complexity. And I'm going to skim over the details and just give you some big chunks, just so we can think about how this applies to feedback. We're going to talk about it as if it applies to other people. And then maybe if you find it applies to you in some ways, then you can take some benefit from it. We talk about the stages. They can be spoken about as if they're quite firm, but really, it's a spectrum of growing a wider perspective on the world, and also it's more like we're a flock of birds, a ball of rags, where some are kind of over here and some are over here, but there's a center of gravity. Some of the birds are flying here and here, but there's a center of where most of our consciousness is at. But I suspect that some parts of us develop slower, some parts of us develop faster, and so depending on the context of where we're thinking about this, we may find that different parts of us respond in different ways at different times. Anyway, I'll give you the general framework and you can do with it what you will. Sometime around teenagehood to 25, people begin to grow into a sense of belonging, and so really want to just know how to be a good team member, even if that team member is a team member of a group that's outside of the general team. I think of that stage as the belonging stage. The next stage is people can develop, not everyone does, can grow into wanting to stand out for the work that they're doing and become really good at solving problems in a particular domain. This is the expert stage, and it is a stage where you get really good at solving a thing connected to your domain. You comfortably hold timelines of 3 months to a year is where you begin to be able to plan. But there is quite a lot of certainty and black and white in the worldview of someone whose centre of gravity is mainly around expert. Some adults then evolve an even wider lens, which is sometimes called achiever. I think of it as the outcome lens, where you're not just focused on solving problems within a domain, but you're able to see that things are connected. Leaders who are at this stage tend to be the leaders we think of as traditionally good leaders. So they're inspirational, and they can create a compelling vision for people to follow, and they understand that involvement creates engagement, all of that stuff. And so they begin to think in timelines of a year to 3 years, begin to see annual cycles, understand that they can see other people's perspectives, a whole bunch of things. Lots of people stay there. Some people move from those independent, so expert and achiever, or problem solving and outcome focused lenses on the world, are very independent styles of being in the world, styles of leadership. Some people begin to cross over into interdependent lenses on the world, where you you realize that you're really good at getting your outcomes and hitting your numbers and making stuff happen, but you realize that you're a tiny part of the world and you only have one part of the truth and the rest of the world is broken. And it's often part of quite a dark night of the soul when you're really reevaluating who you are and how you are in the world and what you're really here for, and connecting to a bigger sense of purpose. But you begin to realize that you're more interested in holding a space to create the culture of people doing well. People tend to begin to lead a bit from the edge rather than being in the center. They are able to see longer time patterns and think in longer timelines, have much deeper empathy for people who are different from them, begin to see how it needs all of us. So they'll bring people together not just because it creates engagement with their own idea, but because they realise that when you bring people together, it makes a better thing happen than just what you would come up with on your own. And there's a few interdependent stages. The way this applies to feedback is people at the belonging stage often want to just be told what to do to be a good team member. So just tell me what you want. So feedback that's more amorphous or less specific can sometimes be hard for them to process. People who are at the expert, the problem-solving stage, and I remember this stage, feedback can be really threatening because your sense of self is so connected to your expertise that any criticism or feedback feels really deeply scary, that maybe you've gotten things wrong. And often people at the problem-solving stage will only receive feedback from people they see as masters of the craft, and anyone else they dismiss. So if you're working with people at this stage, and also if part of you is at this stage, be compassionate. That feedback is really difficult to receive, and you would need to, that negotiating with the person about how they want to receive feedback can make it much less threatening to them. People at the outcome stage, the achiever stage, often really, really welcome feedback on their methods. So they're really happy to receive feedback on how they can do things well so that they can hit their numbers, so that they can get their projects done better. They're really open to learning and development and are really engaged with that kind of thing, but are maybe more defensive about feedback about who they are and how they're doing it. Like their overarching way of doing things can feel really threatening. It's only when people cross over to the interdependent sense of the world that they begin to welcome deeper, more profound feedback on who they are and how they are in the world, because you begin to realize that you need the perspective of others. You need to know what's happening around you. You want deeply to be living as fully as you can into the purpose of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you realize that you do have places that your vision can't see about yourself, and you want to receive that kind of feedback. You want to understand your impact on others. And so that's when that deeper, more reflective kind of feedback can be received. I thought this was interesting because sometimes we think of feedback in just one way, and often also we interpret feedback sometimes through our own lens and then don't understand why people don't respond positively to it. So it's worth working out where's your position in some of that, where's the position of some of the people around you, how are they giving you feedback through their own lens, how are you giving them feedback through your lens, and how that might be adapted. There aren't really any clear answers here. I thought it was a useful lens for you to look through when you're thinking about feedback. If you would like some support, I particularly love working with people around adult development as you move from independent to interdependent. That's the place where I really love working with people who are growing that lens where they realize how much everything is connected. If that sounds like something that's calling to you, then go to megalightheart.com and see whether it's time for us to work together. If you have a steady income and you'd like to support me in producing more of this content, go to patreon.com/megalightheart and become a monthly patron, and click subscribe if you're on YouTube. Add a comment or a question to let me know what's going on in your mind about this today. Click like, helps the algorithms. And I'll see you tomorrow when we're going to think about the feedback sandwich, because I have some particular thoughts around why that might not be the best thing to do, and also what's the bigger context of where that perspective comes from and how a mutual learning perspective might lead you to give better feedback. I'm Meg Lightheart from megalightheart.com, and I'll see you tomorrow.